Okay, now let's talk about the general form of a circle. We talked about center radius form, which is the one where you can graph and you get the most information from it. General form of a circle is when everything's multiplied all the way out. So general form is the x squared plus y squared plus cx plus dy plus e equals 0. Now the kicker to general form is the fact that it is equal to 0. A lot of times general form is written as x squared plus cx plus y squared plus dy plus e, where of course equals to 0, where you have your x's together and you have your y's together. It's addition, it's commutative, that kind of thing doesn't matter as much because I have x's and y's both, so you don't really have to worry about descending order or things like that. So I'm fine with you writing it either with your x's and y's grouped together or just laid out like you have up here at the top in that general form. It's your choice, I don't care. However, if you have general form, you can convert that to center radius form, and you can also convert center radius back to general form. Let's do that one first. Okay, so we have this problem in center radius form and we want to convert it to general form. You simply FOIL it out. Where you have x plus 3, the quantity squared, you can just go through on this problem and FOIL out this x plus 3. Now you can do it two ways. You can write out over to the side or even underneath x plus 3 times x plus 3. Then you FOIL that out, plus 3x plus 9, combining your two middle terms to give you that 6x. Or you can do the shortcut where you square the first term, multiply the two numbers in the middle together, so 3 times x, and take that times 2. Gives me a plus 6x, and then square the last term plus 9. Then you can even do that shortcut, because if you look over here to the right, there's 3x and 3x, there's always going to be 2 of them. So you just multiply those numbers together and take it times 2. That's where that comes from. Good. Now let's do the y's. So square the first term, giving me a y squared. Multiply negative 4 times y times 2, so a negative 8y. And then square negative 4 gives me a plus 16, and that still equals 36. Cool. Now notice in general form it is equal to 0. So if I'm looking at these problems, I have this 9, 16, and then I'm going to have to subtract my 36 to bring it over here. And we put all of those together. So you end up with x squared plus 6x plus a y squared minus 8y. And this is one of those situations where I said, if you want to group the x's and y's, they're already grouped. Sometimes that just makes it nice. So you have a 9 plus 16 minus 36. When you put all of that together, you end up with what? Minus 11? And there it is. That's general form. As long as you have it equal to 0, you're in good shape. You have a problem in your homework that asks you to convert from the center radius form into general form, and people always struggle with that. So I wanted to make sure that I showed you an example of that where all you have to do is just multiply it out and set it equal to 0. Cool. Now let's make the conversion the other way. When I'm given general form and I want to put it in center radius. Awesome, so I'm given this problem in general form, and I want to take this and put it into center radius form and identify the center and the radius once I get there. Now, remember when we were solving quadratics and I told you had to know how to complete the square because we'll be using it again when we do circles? Da-da-da-da-da-da! Here that is. So, we get the amazing opportunity to complete the square not once, but twice. Woohoo! So let's do it right now. I have x squared minus 6x plus blank because I'm going to complete the square with the x's, and I get the opportunity to complete the square with the y's. So plus 10y plus blank equals, now remember with completing the square, you isolate the variables and you put the other numbers on the other side. So I'll subtract 25, and notice I put in 2 blanks, so I'll need to put in 2 blanks on the right hand side. And I kind of ran out of room, so I stacked them up there. Okay, let's do it right now. Let's do the x's first. Now the deal with completing the square in a circle is we're not going to solve all the way for x here. My ultimate goal is to put it in center radius form, which has my parentheses squared. So let's do it right now. For the x, I end up with x minus, now remember, whenever I'm looking at this, because I have a minus sign next to my 6, I have a minus sign in my parentheses. And then you take your 6 and divide it by 2. So what's 6 divided by 2? 3. And then I take that 3 and square it to put it in my blanks. So that's a 9. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So I'm going to put a 9 in the blanks on the right side too. Now, let's take care of that y part. So plus, I have a y plus blank squared. So I'm going to take my 10, divide it by 2, giving me a 5. And when you square the 5, you get 25. Again, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Now look and see what happens here. Whenever I have this problem, I'm going to combine the terms on the right side. A plus 25 and a minus 25 cancel out, and I'm just left with 9 on that side. So I have x minus 3 squared plus a y plus 5 squared equals 9. Awesome! So if I want to identify my center and my radius, what is the center of this problem? Oh, I need to learn how to spell radius, huh? Let's try that again. The center, remember, whatever's in the parentheses, it's opposite of what it looks like. So if I have an x minus 3, the x-coordinate is actually a 3, good, and the y-coordinate is a negative 5, right on. So the center of this circle is at the point 3, negative 5, and my radius is what? Not 9. What is it? 3, good, because the radius, remember in your formula, this 9 represents r squared. So I want to know the square root of that so that I can just come up with my radius. Awesome. So my center is 3, negative 5, and my radius is 3. See, completing the square is not so bad, and we get to use it in other places. I love it when we use previous information into the current lesson. We're just building on that stuff. Awesome. Let's do more. All right, let's do this one. If I have x squared plus 10x plus y squared minus 4y equals 33, we want to figure out the center and the radius of this circle. So, what do we get to do? Complete the square. All right, so let's do it right now. I have x squared plus 10x plus blank plus a y squared minus 4y plus blank is equal to a negative 33, and I have to tack on 2 blanks on the right side because I put in 2 on the left side. That's a minus there. Okay, so let's complete some squares. For the x's, I have an x plus 10 divided by 2 is 5. When I square that, you get 25. So 25 goes in those blanks. Plus, I have y minus 4 divided by 2 is a 2 squared, which is 4. So a 4 goes in those blanks. Then I do some addition over here. Negative 33 plus, and then 25 plus 4 is 29. So negative 33 plus 29 is a negative 4. What? How does that work? So if I'm looking at this, I technically have a center of negative 5, 2, but how can I have a radius of negative 4? How does that work out? A radius is the distance from the center to the outside. Can I have a distance of a negative amount? No. Oh, check this out. So if you get a problem like this where you have a negative radius, that means that your graph does not exist. So if I have a negative radius, it is non-existent. And, I mean, seriously, can you have a point of negative 5, 2 with a negative radius so it implodes upon itself? I'm not really sure how that would work. So it's not only not a circle, but your graph just in general does not exist. So make sure you're paying attention to that. You solve this the exact same way that you typically would to find a center and a radius. But if you notice that your radius is negative, it's just non-existent. Cool. All right, let's do example awesome, because it is. Now, it's the same thing here. I want to come up with the center and the radius. So, notice in this problem, I have the x squared and the y squared. So, we want to rearrange this. So, we group the x's so we can complete that square and group the y's. So, let's do it right now. I have x squared minus 6x plus blank plus a y squared minus 6y plus blank is equal to a negative 18, and then I got a couple of blanks over there on that side. Okay, so let's do this thing right. I have for the x's an x minus 6 divided by 2 is 3, and when you square that you get a 9. Whatever you do to one side you have to do to the other. Now here's the amazing part of this problem. I have the exact same thing for the y's. So y minus 3 squared is also 9. Okay, so negative 18 plus 9 is what? 0. Man, I'm throwing a bunch of crazy stuff at you. So if I have that equal to 0, typically we have our center here at 3, 3. So that's our center. And I have a radius of 0. Now think about this for a minute. If you have a radius of 0, how far out from the center are you going? Nowhere, right? But it's not negative, so that doesn't mean it's non-existent. It's just 0. So if I have my point, so here I have my crazy little circle here, and here is at my point of 3, 3. Now how far out of this is 0? So what does that actually mean? If that's a 0 distance, I have my point here of 3, 3, and I go out 0, where am I still at? I'm at that point. So you don't have a circle here, but it's not as though it's non-existent like the last one was non-existent. We have just a point. Awesome. So if your radius equals 0, so if my radius equals 0, then it's just a point. There is no circle involved because it doesn't go out anywhere. Cool. Okay, we actually have 3 options available when you're converting from general form to center radius. If you actually have a circle, then you end up with x minus h squared, y minus k squared, the normal, and you're actually going to get a number for your radius. Your radius is the key to determine what type it is that you have. If it's non-existent, you have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to a negative number. That is the problem because you can't have a negative radius. If you get a point, then you have your x minus h squared and your y minus k squared is equal to 0. So the kicker to these problems is look at what your radius is. That's going to tell you which problem it is you have. Now in your homework, it gives you a line option as well. Not really sure if they're just trying to be trickster or what's up with that, but anytime you start a problem with a squared term, you will never end up with a line. So I'm not sure what that is, but basically you can discount that. So this is super cool. You got to complete the square, work with some circles. Enjoy your homework.